When I caught $1 billion fortune crumbling, I discovered a love that changed everything. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The air felt heavy, like the weight of the world was balanced on my chest. My heart raced, each beat a deafening reminder of what was at stake. Everything that felt certain shattered in an instant that I was standing in the old, dimly lit office of my father's company. The walls, once adorned with accolades and memories, felt like they were closing in on me. I remember the scent of desperation, a mix of sweat and old paper, filled with the looming shadows of failure. My father had built this empire brick by brick, and now it was slipping right through our fingers. My hands trembled as I scrolled through the financial reports on my computer, numbers flickering violently, each one more catastrophic than the last. I glanced at my reflection in the dark screen. Panic-stricken eyes stared back at me. It was all unraveling, our legacy, our pride, and the dreams we had painted across countless nights. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah, my girlfriend, an anchor in a world that felt increasingly chaotic. "Hey, are you okay? I'm worried." I should have responded, but my thoughts spiraled deeper into darkness. The clattering of my heart echoed in my ears, drowning out the relief her voice might have brought. Sarah had been my light. The warmth of her laughter brought me solace, even in the most frantic moments. But could she truly understand? The burden was too heavy. I felt so alone, like a ship lost in a storm, surrounded by nothing but waves of despair. Just then, a crash echoed from the hallway. I jumped, my heart hammering. I felt a rush of adrenaline. Was this the moment the walls finally came tumbling down? I opened the door cautiously, peering into the corridor. There they were, investors, murmuring, faces twisted in suspicion and disdain, like vultures circling. Their eyes shot daggers, the murmurs growing louder. I felt the world close in around me. "We've got to talk," one of them said, the grating sound of their voice slicing through the tension. Desperation clawed at my throat. What could I possibly say? Could I defend the indefensible? Everything I knew was crumbling. I took a step back, feeling the weight of judgment pressing against my shoulders. As I stepped further back, my gaze locked on something glimmering on the floor. A small, ornately carved box, half open, its contents spilling out of family heirloom. I had seen it countless times, but today it held an unfamiliar energy. I hesitated, torn between fear and something else, curiosity. My breath caught as I reached for it. What secrets lay hidden within? In that moment, as chaos erupted around me, I felt something shift deep inside. A possibility, a spark. Maybe this was the end? Or a beginning? I didn't know. But I couldn't let it go, not now. And just when I thought I might find a way forward, Sarah's voice echoed in my mind once more. "Promise me you won't give up." Could I keep that promise? Or was everything destined to fall apart, taking the last remnants of hope with it? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The air in the office grew heavier as the investors loomed closer, their insistent voices becoming a sinister symphony of judgment. My fingers grazed the carved edges of the box, grounding me in the present even amidst the storm. I took a breath, drawing strength from the relic of my family's past. This moment felt monumental, as if its unassuming presence could chart a new course, compass guiding me through desperation. "Listen," I finally managed to respond to the investors, my voice wavering but resolute. "I understand your concerns, and I want to be transparent. This isn't the end, it's a recalibration." I hated how weak my words sounded, but I refused to let them smell blood in the water. The gathering cloud of disdain didn't dissipate, but I could see a flicker of curiosity cross their faces at my unexpected glimmer of resolve. Perhaps they sensed that I was holding on to something more than just numbers. I was grappling with my authenticity, my identity as a leader. In that brief moment, the grip of despair lost its hold, sparking a tiny flame of defiance within me, but then a more personal voice broke through the tide of uncertainty. "You can't possibly think you'll recover from this in time for the next quarter," one investor sneered, eyes cold like steel. "You're just a kid pretending to steer a sinking ship." The word stung, tearing at my confidence and flickering hope that I needed Sarah now more than ever. The thought of her bright eyes and comforting smile pushed against the crushing weight of doubt, making me yearn for her presence. But how could I bring her into this chaos? As if summoned by my despair, my phone buzzed again. An unread message, this time from her sister. "Clara, Sarah's really worried about you. Please, can you call her?" Frustration brewed in my chest. Faced with a fate uncertain, how could I even think to draw Sarah into my whirlwind? I clenched my phone tightly, wishing desperately I could shield her from my struggles while also craving her strength. My heartbeats felt sharper, each pulse a reminder of the walls growing closer. Just when I thought I had gathered my composure, another crash echoed, this time from behind me. I turned to see the office manager, Jamie, her expression a mix of shock and determination as she stood amidst scattered files. "I thought you needed help. We can't let them in here. This is your legacy." The kindness in her voice pierced through, a momentary reprieve from the storm outside. It reminded me that even in the darkest hours, unexpected allies could emerge, offering a shred of hope. "Thank you, Jamie," I murmured, feeling a warmth unfurl within the cold grip of anxiety. Taking a step forward, I felt the solidity returning to my voice. "We need to come together. If we're going down, let's go down fighting." With every word, I could feel Jamie's resolve, and it began to cast back the shadows. Perhaps I wasn't entirely alone, perhaps this challenge could forge unexpected alliances. As we faced the financial tempest together, I could see some investors slightly nodding, intrigued. But before the momentum could build, a shadow obscured the doorway. An unexpected visitor. "Sorry to interrupt," a familiar voice drawled, breaking the tension. My heart sank once at the sight of my estranged brother, Ethan, appearing at the threshold. He exuded a calculated confidence that was unsettling. "I came to see what was left of our family's venture." I assumed it must be entertaining. The room froze. Each investor's expression morphed as they clocked the new player, and the simmering animosity between us was as palpable as the tension in the air. Was this the rescue I had hoped for, or the grenade that might obliterate any chance of salvaging our legacy? He sauntered further in, surveying the chaos, while I felt the weight of expectation wrapped around my throat, constricting my breath. Would he ally himself with me, or would he revel in my downfall? No matter the outcome, the stakes felt irrevocably higher. With Ethan standing across from me, the very definition of a family divided, I could only cling to the hope that perhaps this unexpected turbulence could ignite a force I hadn't foreseen, a force born from the tangled web of love, fear, and the primal need to protect what remained. "Promise me you won't give up," I whispered to myself, the echoes of Sarah's promise lacing my thoughts like a prayer, igniting a flicker of warmth even amidst an inconceivable storm. As the door swung shut behind Ethan, the air thickened with unspoken tension. I could feel Jamie's hand subtly squeeze my shoulder, reminding me that I wasn't alone in this labyrinth of distrust and looming disaster. The investors shifted uneasily in their seats, some exchanging glances filled with intrigue and caution. "What are you doing here, Ethan?" I managed, each word heavy with a mix of anger and disbelief. The sight of my brother, who had abandoned our family's mission in pursuit of his own ambitions, ignited the old resentment, but I had to keep it buried. Now wasn't the time for feuds. This was about survival, isn't it obvious? He replied with a smug grin, his confidence conflicting sharply with the turmoil swirling in my stomach. "I'm here to see how the family business is faring. Did your little passion project finally implode?" The jabs landed like blows, but I held my ground, pushing aside the flood of memories, the fights, the whispers of betrayal. "Actually, I'm still standing," I replied, forcing a steadiness into my tone. "And there might still be a chance to recover what you think is crumbling." The investor's eyes flickered between us, curiosity peaking as I felt Jamie's presence beside me. Anchor in this storm. Ethan chuckled softly, the arrogance dripping from his voice. You're still holding on to the delusion that this could work, aren't you? You're just a kid trying to play CEO in a world designed for seasoned players. His laughter echoed in my ears, a sound I had come to despise. The weight of his words pressed down on me, stirring memories of another time, another hope. I glanced at Jamie, whose resolute expression reminded me I was not on this lonely path. Maybe it's time for you to reconsider your next moves, then, I shot back, the steel in my voice surprising even me. You might find some unexpected whispers of change are brewing. Ethan's laughter halted and a shadow crossed his face. It was a flicker of uncertainty that added fuel to the fire in my chest. But before I could press, Clara's message flashed through my mind again, the plea for Sarah tumbling through my thoughts like autumn leaves. I caught sight of Jamie's concerned gaze. She could sense my internal battle, and it pained her to witness. Maybe we can discuss this more privately, Ethan, I suggested, hoping to defuse the situation. We're not here to engage in a sibling rivalry. This is about our family's legacy. The moment hung in the air, fragile yet charged, filled with the possibility of an unexpected alliance that I had never thought possible. That he studied me, sizing me up like I was yet another investment opportunity ready for his scrutiny. Or perhaps you just need more help than you want to admit? His words slithered into my mind, triggering a whirlwind of emotions I had locked away: fear, resentment, and the very real threat of failure. Clenching my fists at my sides, I fought against the urge to back away from this confrontation, but the stark reality was that I needed to prove I could handle the storm swirling around. Maya's presence became both a challenge and a burden. Just then, as if the universe heard my internal plea for clarity, a soft knock broke through the charged atmosphere. Clara peeked inside, her face pale yet resolute. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I thought you should know there's been a minor incident with the investors outside. At those words, dread pooled in my stomach as she continued, they've been spreading rumors. Something about, well, regrets in their investment, turmoil in the team. It seems they're ready to abandon ship. Her voice shattered the momentary hope I had been clinging to. The silence fell heavy, words of uncertainty and fear lodging in my throat. I turned back to Ethan, whose expression was transformed. Whatever confidence he had exuded earlier was now replaced by a glint of calculation. I felt him weighing his options, contemplating what allegiance or betrayal might bring him greater returns. Looks like we're both in hot water, he said, leaning against the doorway, his tone shifting from mocking to serious. But the real question is, are you willing to let go of your pride and work together? Because if you're sinking, I might as well dive into the depths with you. The unexpected sincerity struck me like a lightning bolt, full of possibilities yet girded with the weight of our complicated history. Was this a real offer, or just a clever maneuver on his part? My heart raced as I momentarily closed my eyes, envisioning Sarah's face, recalling her soft laughter, the way it ignited warmth in my soul. She had believed in me even when I could hardly believe in myself. Together? I echoed, uncertain, but something deep within me rebelled against the desperation. You, of all people, are suggesting we combine forces? I could hear the disbelief in my own voice, but perhaps the chaos had reached a tipping point where old feuds could yield to new strategies. That I wouldn't suggest it if I thought I could manage alone, he stated, his voice more earnest than I had ever heard. I know the stakes, and if we're going to salvage this ship, we need to steer it with purpose. I opened my mouth to respond, but the urge to refuse was drowned out by the vision of what we could lose: everything we had both fought for in the past. The reflection of family, despite the darkness and fractures, flickered in the back of my mind, urging me to consider the ridiculous notion of unity. Fine, I said, my voice trembling with uncertainty. Let's set aside our differences for now. But understand this, Ethan, I won't be pushed down for your benefit. This isn't just about business, it's personal. Fair enough, he replied, a hint of respect twinkling in his eyes. But before we could seal this volatile truce, a loud crash resonated from outside, quickly followed by urgent shouting. What now? I thought, panic surging as Clara's face fell. My heart raced, sensing the mounting chaos enveloping us at an unrelenting pace, leaving us all to wonder what earthquake would come next and how our fragile alliance would hold amidst the storm. In a world poised on the precipice, everything seemed to hang delicately in the balance, and just as I thought clarity was taking shape, an unwelcome realization dawned. I might have just reignited a war I hadn't fully understood, armed with nothing but hope and trembling courage. The commotion outside escalated, the shouts rising into a cacophony that filled the room with an electric panic. Clara's eyes widened in alarm, and before I could gather my thoughts, she stepped towards the door, her instincts propelling her forward. "Stay here," I urged, grabbing her wrist gently, grounding both of us in the shadow of uncertainty. My words fought against my instincts, but I couldn't bear the thought of losing anyone else around me to whatever chaos was brewing outside. Ethan shifted, his posture suddenly alert, and I sensed the transformation in him. No longer merely the antagonist, he was a man now aware of the stakes, the impending storm looming over us. "What do you think it is?" he asked, his voice strained but edged with an intensity one hadn't anticipated. "I don't know," I admitted, the tightness in my throat constricting any further illusions of command. "But whatever it is, we can't let it escalate." Just as I spoke, the door burst open, a frantic intern sprinting in, his face pale and covered in perspiration. "They're going to pull out," he panted, glancing back as if to ensure we weren't followed. "The investors are getting rowdy. They're threatening to leave right now, and they want answers." The very ground beneath me seemed to shake. I exchanged worried looks with Clara and Jamie, whose eyes mirrored my fear. "This isn't just a rumor then," I whispered, the semblance of control slipping through my fingers. "I'll go talk to them," Clara urged, stepping towards the exit. "You stay here and handle the damage control, are you sure?" "They might," I started, but she cut me off with a determined gaze that told me there was no arguing. "I'm sure they'll listen to me. I can calm them down." And with a rapid nod, she vanished out the door. A deafening silence filled the room, leaving only the faint sounds of raised voices filtering in. Ethan and I stood there, side by side now, two reluctant partners weighing the gravity of our choices. "You know," Ethan spoke, his voice barely above a whisper, "this is what I wanted to avoid. Being stuck between a family that wants me gone and a business that's crumbling under my watch." "Welcome to the club," I shot back, the bitterness rising within me. It was a defense mechanism, masking the vulnerability that was seeping through. If we were going to navigate this together, I couldn't afford to show weakness. But we don't have time for regrets. We need to act, and we need to act fast. Ethan nodded, his face tight with determination. "Okay, here's the plan. I'll use my connections. I know a few people who might sway things back in our favor if we can keep them calm for just a little longer." "Fine, then we'll do that." The voice inside me prone to doubt was quiet now, replaced with a sense of urgency. "But we do it together. No hidden agendas, no beneath-the-table deals." "Deal," Ethan replied, extending a hand, a gesture that felt heavy in the air like an uncharted promise. I grasped it, sealing a fragile alliance that tasted of desperation and an inkling of hope. As we turned to address the imminent disaster, Jamie squeezed my arm gently. "Hey, no matter what happens," she said softly, "we'll get through this." Her warmth infused me with a momentary calm, a reminder that I wasn't sailing this storm alone. Still, darkness clouded my mind with the looming uncertainty, the fear of loss echoing ever louder. Just then, Clara burst back through the door, her face conveying desperate exhilaration. "They're willing to hear us out," she said breathlessly, her eyes scanning the room. "But we have to move fast before they change their minds." "We will," I affirmed, gathering my thoughts and rallying my courage. But as I moved towards the door, ready to face the investors and the tempest they had become, a chilling thought struck me with sudden clarity. What if this was all just a distraction? What if the real attack was yet to come? The weight of that notion weighed heavily on my chest, the fear that there was a deeper fissure within our ranks, a betrayal cloaked in familiarity. Just as I was about to voice my concerns, the ground beneath us trembled. And the lights flickered ominously before plunging us into darkness. The panic set in fast, shrieks and composed voices merged into an echoing dread that felt almost deafening. "Stay close," I shouted, hoping my voice could guide us through this new veil of uncertainty. At that moment, I felt a presence shift in the shadows. Suddenly, a figure emerged, stepping into the dim glow of the emergency lights that flickered back to life, revealing not just any figure, but someone whose face cracked open the pain of the past. Sarah. My heart leaped into my throat, memories flooding my mind. The girl who brought laughter and light into my life in an otherwise dim world. But the ghosts of our shared history loomed large, breathing life into emotions I had buried deep beneath the surface. "What are you doing here?" I managed, feeling both elation and fear collide within me. I heard what's happening, and her voice tremored as she stepped forward, the shadows dancing across her features, revealing the bruises she'd carried far too long. "I had to come. You need to know the truth about Ethan." My pulse quickened at her words, the deep-rooted conflicts I thought I had resolved suddenly reigniting with ferocity. I motioned for Ethan to step back, the old rage surging back to the forefront. There was a flicker in Sarah's eyes, a warning that wrapped around the unease we were already facing in our precarious alliance. No. I shouted, desperation overcoming my thoughts. "What truth? You can't just throw those words around without context." But her expression was resolute, a hint of something deeper buried just below the surface. A revelation withheld, and now on the cusp of exposure, with the stakes higher than ever, I stood at a crossroads, the precarious balance of my life teetering on the edge between renewed hope and resurrected betrayal. Would this unexpected arrival be the light we needed, or the weight that dragged us all further into darkness? Clarity slipped through my fingers like sand as I faced Sarah, her presence swelling the tension in the room until it felt suffocating. The flickering emergency lights exposed the raw edges of her vulnerability as she stood before me, the girl I once cherished, now a harbinger of truth. "What truth?" I repeated, my voice rising, panic clawing its way up my throat as I struggled to hold on to the fragile thread of our collective survival. "Do you really think this is the time for secrets, Sarah?" The air thickened between us, and I caught a glimpse of Clara's worried face in the background, her brow furrowed with concern. I could almost feel everyone's collective breath held in anticipation, waiting for the turn of this twisted narrative. "I wouldn't be here if it wasn't important," she replied, her voice trembling yet firm. "Ethan's been hiding something, a secret that could change everything." Ethan's eyes locked onto mine with a mixture of fear and disbelief, the tension in his jaw mirroring the wariness that was creeping back into my heart. "Sarah, don't do this," he warned, taking a cautious step forward as if trying to shield whatever she was about to unleash, but Sarah didn't hesitate. "You need to know who you're dealing with," she insisted, staring straight at Ethan, her vulnerability turning into resolve. "He's not who you think he is." Just then, the heavy thrum of murmurs from outside grew more pronounced, an incongruous backdrop to the revelations teetering on Sarah's lips. Clara turned to me, wide-eyed, her turmoil apparent. My heart raced, caught between the impending disclosure and the unsettling backdrop threatening to consume us all. "Before you start pointing fingers," Ethan interrupted, his voice calm, rising above the turmoil, "we're all in a crisis here." "Let's focus on that." "She's right," I countered, the instinct that had kept me alive in this unforgiving environment kicking back into gear. "If there's something we need to know, stop." Sarah's voice sliced through the chaos, filled with painful conviction. "You think he's your ally, but I've seen the documents, the deals. He's played both sides. What are you saying?" I demanded, my heart pounding painfully against my ribcage. Ethan's expression darkened, and I could feel the tension snap like a taut wire between us. "That I am saying," she pressed, each word laced with urgency, "he's been going behind your back. He wants to leverage this whole situation for himself. No, I would never." Ethan shot back, defensively, his features twisted with frustration. "You don't know what you're talking about." "I know enough," she countered, tears threatening to spill over. "I overheard your conversations. I couldn't stand by any more. You were never just a pawn in this game, you were a means to an end. You need to choose who you want to be, Ethan. This crisis is your moment." A jagged silence wound tighter around us, the murmurs of the investors outside pulsating in the background, a reminder that time was slipping away. Clara stepped forward, her voice laced with incredulity. "We're facing a potential collapse, and you want to air family secrets? I'm not here for the pity party," Sarah shouted, her voice cracking under the strain. "I'm here because you deserve the truth, especially now." The discomfort in me surged, battling with the affection I once felt for Sarah. I glanced at Ethan, his conviction wavering as the shadows of doubt began to creep into the edges of his tight facade. A fracture began to form, not just between us but within him, an echo of a man caught in a tempest of his own making. "Sarah, if you really care about him," I said, my voice softened, "if you want to help us, tell us everything. Don't drop vague accusations. This is our lives at stake." Her gaze met mine, searching for something, a semblance of understanding amidst our swirling chaos. "All I can tell you is that he's connected to the investors in ways that could screw us all over," she replied, her urgency blending with genuine sorrow. "I wouldn't have come here if I didn't think you needed to know." Before it's too late, the urgency of her truth hung in the air, so palpable that I could almost touch it. I took a breath, steadying the chaos within. There has to be a way to reconcile this. We need to figure out how to appeal to them without tearing each other apart. "This is bigger than us." A sudden crash echoed from the hallway, an ominous reminder of the crumbling situation. The fire alarms flared to life, red lights casting an eerie glow across the room. Urgency multiplied. "Everyone out!" I shouted, feeling the pulse of adrenaline surge through me. "We need to get to the investors and ground them. We can't afford to let panic take over." As the group moved toward the door with a frantic urgency, Ethan lingered a moment longer, searching my gaze for validation or a hint of hope. "Please," he murmured, something raw in his plea, "if there's any truth to what Sarah said, I need you to trust me. Just give me a chance to show you who I really am." But as I crossed the threshold, the outside chaos ever loomed, and I couldn't shake the feeling that trust had become a fragile illusion. My heart weighed heavy, conflicted, as I moved forward, the uncertainty gnawing at me. Then, before I could collect my thoughts, the unmistakable sound of footsteps thundered through the hall. Shadows danced against the walls, and I felt a chilling ripple of dread. In that moment, Sarah's words echoed back. Was this truly the time to start questioning alliances, or were we about to lose everything without a fight? The unfolding storm awaited outside, and as Clara took my hand, ready to move forward into uncertainty, I could only hope I was making the right choice. The chaos erupted as we burst through the door, the acrid scent of smoke already infiltrating the air, swirling around us like a menacing specter. Clara clutched my hand tighter as we stepped into a cacophony of shouts, the emergency lights casting an unsettling gleam over a crowd of investors milling anxiously. Whispers of confusion and fear rippled through the group, increasing the tension already gnawing at my insides. My mind raced. We needed to calm them down before panic consumed us all. I scanned the sea of faces, searching for a moment's clarity in the growing storm. "Everyone, please!" I called out, my voice catching on the flurry of anxiety that enveloped us. "We need to remain calm. Let's gather in the main room where it's safer. We have a plan to stabilize the situation." "Stabilize?" echoed a sharp voice from the crowd. It was Mr. Lawson, a significant investor I couldn't afford to lose. His skepticism was palpable, lingering in the air like smoke. "How can we trust you? What reassurance do we have?" A wave of desperation washed over me. Trust was a fragile thing, especially now, as the uncertainty around Ethan threatened to fracture any alliances. "We know the stakes. We're ready to discuss proactive measures. We just need to work together. For all our futures," I implored, threading hope through my words even as doubt gnawed at me. At that moment, I spotted Ethan on the periphery, his face a mask of turmoil and determination. I watched as he stepped forward, nervously wiping his sweating palms on his pants. "Listen, everyone, I know the fear you feel. I've faced the very real possibility of losing everything," he said, his voice strengthening as he caught sight of me. "But we need to unite our efforts, not tear them apart." Ethan's impassioned plea hung in the air, a desperate act to win back the trust he had lost in the microcosm of our turmoil. The crowd wavered, uncertain yet drawn to him, their expressions shifting from suspicion to a flicker of hope, the very ember we needed to ignite. As my heartbeat quickened in concert with the rising tension around us, Clara squeezed my hand, silently conveying her support. I wanted to believe in Ethan, to feel that his words were the truth beneath the surface of this mounting chaos. "Show them," I whispered to him, my voice barely audible, but just as the energy began to shift, a loud crash echoed from behind us, and I whirled around in alarm. The door slammed open, revealing a disheveled Jeremy, his face pale as the urgency of his entrance drew everyone's attention. "They've breached the perimeter," he gasped, fear clinging to his every word. "They've got backup, and they're coming for who?" I interrupted, panic rising with a rush. "Who is they? Are they investors?" "No," Jeremy said, breathless, shaking his head. "No, it's the creditors. They're demanding repayment now. Reporters are on the way. They'll expose everything if we don't act fast." The room erupted into chaos again, murmurs turning to shouts, and I could feel the weight of impending doom close in on us. My mind raced, scurrying to find a solution as pieces of a bigger puzzle began to fit together. This wasn't just miscommunication, this was sabotage. I caught Ethan's gaze through the tumult, a shared understanding forming like a flicker of light in the darkness. "We need to lay out our position," I suggested urgently. "Well, show them how committed we are to weathering this storm. We have these crises stacked against us, but together we can rebut them." As Clara turned to redirect the crowd, a small voice piped up from the back, "And what about the documents Sarah mentioned? The ones Ethan has hidden?" The protest stung like a shard of glass, and I could see Ethan's resolve begin to crack once more, fear and betrayal carving his features into something unrecognizable. "I didn't hide anything, I was trying to protect all of us," he pleaded, desperation lacing his words. "Protect?" Sarah's voice rang out, drawn to the front by the turmoil, her own fears dancing behind her eyes. "You've put everyone at risk, enough," I shouted, rallying the attention back to me, unsure if I could hold the threads of this gathering together much longer. "We're in this together. Every single one of yous, or we collapse. So, let's focus on our options moving forward. We need to take this directly to the creditors. Face the storm as one." Nods trickled through the crowd, anxiety still etched across their faces, and as I glanced at Ethan, I could almost glimpse the pain in his eyes, wondering if he was still that ally I once thought he was. But we had little time left. It was then I noticed Clara staring beyond the crowd, her eyes wide as if she'd spotted a ghost. "What is it?" I asked urgently. Her voice trembled. "Over there, the altercation by the backstage," she pointed, and as I turned, my breath caught in my throat. A throng of men was moving in our direction, suits and ties clashing with the urgency of the scene, dragging a figure along with them, a figure I recognized all too well. No. No way. My heart plummeted as I realized who it was, my own resolve teetering on the edge of collapsing completely. "Ethan, it's your father, they have him." Clara's words screamed through the air, each syllable a crack that threatened to shatter my final thread of hope. Ethan's face paled, the reality of the situation sinking into his bones, a new kind of fear etching itself into his features. "What are they doing here?" he stammered, the weight of betrayal blooming darkly within him. The tension shifted a notch lower as confusion morphed into dread. Every eye turned toward the approaching threat. And in the midst of the madness, the flickering fire alarms bore witness to an unfolding story, a tale of loss, love, and unyielding challenges that would redefine us all. But as we prepared to confront what lay ahead, one truth lingered: trust and survival were fragile as glass in a storm, and one ill-timed revelation might shatter everything we held dear. The room froze as the group of men drew closer, their collective presence hovering like an ominous cloud. My soul sank when I caught a glimpse of Ethan's father, Tim, his expression cold and calculating as he scanned the crowd. The reality of the situation hit me like a punch. We weren't just facing creditors or disgruntled investors anymore, we were staring into the face of betrayal woven from the very fabric of family. "Get him out of here." Ethan's voice broke through the fog of confusion, raw and desperate, but his father merely chuckled, a sound devoid of warmth or affection. "Ethan, son," Tim said, his tone mocking. "You really thought you could shield your little empire from its own shadows? You've underestimated everything and everyone in your life." "Welcome to reality." Ethan flinched, every word snapping like a taut string ready to break. I felt Clara's hand grip mine, as if our connection represented a lifeline in the overwhelming tide of chaos. The crowd buzzed with uncertainty, whispers flickering like smoke around us, igniting old stories of suspicion and betrayal. "Please, I'm begging you." Ethan's voice wavered. "We can sort this out. You don't have to do this." Tim leaned closer, a sinister glint in his eyes. "You think this is just about money, don't you? You always did, and look where that's led you." His gaze cut through us, as if measuring the emotional turmoil behind each face. "Your mother warned you you'd eventually drown in your illusions." In that moment, everything shifted inside Ethan. I could see the pieces of his life unraveling before him, but amidst the ashes of despair, I also spotted something else, a flicker of fierce determination igniting within. The storm wasn't just an external force, it coiled tightly around Ethan, threatening to suffocate him under an unraveling legacy. "Anyone who gets in my way is in for a fight." Ethan spat, his voice firming as he seized the courage to stand his ground. I admired his bravery, grounding my own trembling heart in the conviction I saw in him. Simultaneously, a stranger stepped forward. He was wiry, with piercing eyes and a faint scar trailing down his cheek. He stood defiantly, anchoring himself alongside Ethan, challenging Tim with a stoic presence. "He didn't drown in illusions, Tim, he's fighting to keep afloat." "That's more than you've ever done for him." The tension shifted again, moments stretching like hours as we collectively held our breaths. One undeniable truth slithered into the back of my mind: who among us had the strength to face family betrayal and come out unscathed? Tim's smile darkened, his facade cracking as he took a menacing step forward. "You don't know what you're messing with. This isn't just business, it's personal." Ethan hummed with energy, each word dancing between defiance and desperation. "If you want to take anything away from me, then you'll need to fight me first. I'm not backing down." As the confrontation loomed, a whisper pierced the chaos again, a soft, trembling voice from the back of the gathering. "Ethan, what about the documents?" It was Sarah, lingering with uncertainty but clinging to the hope that clarity could emerge from the storm. No. Ethan snapped, turning the full weight of his gaze on her. "We can't unravel everything now, not here." But the door slammed open again, this time revealing a woman dressed in somber black, her eyes reflecting the weight of an eternal burden. "We might not have time for that," she interrupted, her voice intense and filled with emotion. "Ethan, we can't hide forever. It's time you knew the truth." Everyone strained to hear the revelation, hearts beating in symphony, an orchestra of fear and anticipation. I took a breath, grounding myself in the tumult, aware more than ever that trust was balancing on a knife's edge, teetering close to shattering. "What truth?" Ethan's voice was a fragile thread, woven tightly with confusion and dread. "What do you mean?" Time slowed as the woman stepped forward, her face transposed with memories long hidden. "Your mother didn't just leave you a fortune, she left you secrets, dangers that lurk beneath every choice you've made." As the room held its collective breath, a revelation threatened to explode like a hidden landmine buried in a neglected garden of past grievances. The crowd leaned in, unable to resist the gravitational pull of truths waiting to unfurl. Ethan's face paled, the anger and resolve peeling off him as overwhelming confusion painted his features white. "What secrets? What do you mean?" The tension grew thick with dread. I could feel the fragile strand of hope fraying under the pressure, leaving us all teetering on the precipice of despair. But as the words began to emerge, a new glimmer of possibility shone through the cracks. I held tightly to the belief that even in the shadow of betrayal, our intertwined fates could lead not only to survival but also the unveiling of love hidden in the depths of our fight against the storm. And before the truth could emerge fully, the ground beneath us seemed to tremble, a foreshadowing of the revelations that lay ahead, ready to unravel everything. The room felt like a living being, a mass sharing in our collective trepidation, shushing every whisper to create a space suffused with tension. The woman, mysterious and burdened, lingered for an agonizing moment, the weight of her silence pressing heavier than the trembling air. "Ethan," she finally breathed, her voice low yet powerful, "I knew your mother. She confided in me her fears long before everything crumbled. This isn't just about the fortune, it's about the choices she made to protect you, protect you." The phrase echoed, reverberating through Ethan's mind. I could see the colors of his confusion wash away, making room for deep-seated anger not just toward himself but toward the mother he thought he knew. The realization clawed its way up from the depths of insecurity and mistrust. "What choices?" he demanded, almost a whisper now, a closed fist at his side shaking with the effort to contain the tempest inside. "What could possibly justify lying to me? Keeping me in the dark?" He turned, desperation in his eyes, seeking clarity among the gathered crowd. The woman stepped closer, her gaze steady, drawing every eye to her in the process. "Your father isn't just a businessman, Ethan. He's been involved in activities that could ruin our lives. Your mother, she tried to shield you from it all. But now he's here." Ethan interrupted, pain cracking through his words. "Here to destroy everything she worked for, to drag all of us into his shadow." Anger coursed through the crowd, a collective heartbeat of indignation and fear, but amidst it, Clara squeezed my hand tighter. "Maybe you should listen to her, Ethan," she whispered, as if her words could act as a grounding force amid the storm. "What if this is the key? What if knowing the truth changes everything?" Time fell still as Ethan's eyes flickered between the woman's haunted expression and the pressure mounting on him. "What do I do with that truth?" he asked, voice wavering, revealing the fragility beneath the steel facade he tried so hard to maintain. In that moment, a faint glimmer of hope emerged, a warmth that transcended the darkness. I imagined the bonds of trust that could emerge from truth, fragile yet resilient, capable of fighting against the insurmountable odds ahead. But would it be enough? Then the unexpected happened. An elderly couple, witnesses to the increasingly charged atmosphere, moved slowly through the throng. The man, a kind soul with kind, wise eyes, approached Ethan. "Young man," he began, the gentle timbre of his voice cutting through the heavy air. "I know you feel alone in this battle, but remember, you don't have to fight it by yourself. People care. Despite the turmoil, there's love waiting just outside this storm." His words wrapped around us like a warm embrace, a beacon casting light through the din of dread. Other voices began to murmur in agreement, echoing the sentiment that had been hidden beneath layers of fear. They had come not just for entertainment, but for kinship, fighting one way or another against their own demons. Ethan inhaled deeply, visibly shaken but invigorated by the unexpected kindness. "But my father," he trailed off, eyes darting toward the danger looming nearby, uncertainty battling against the flickering hope that now emerged from within. "Together, we stand strong against the tide," the woman reiterated, mastering the moment, nudging Ethan toward reconciliation with the painful truth. "Let the truth bind you rather than break you." Just as he seemed ready to embrace the power within him, the air cracked ominously, jolting us back to the reality of Tim's presence. "You naive fools," Tim sneered, interrupting the fragile moment. "You think love can shield you from the consequences of greed? Didn't you learn anything?" Tim's eyes gleamed with malice, and in that quick breath between us, I understood, he wasn't just here to challenge Ethan, he was a predator aiming for blood. Ethan had the fire in him, but was it enough to confront the reality of a father who thrived in darkness? No sooner had I formed the question in my mind than chaos erupted. The room morphing into a swirling mess of shouts, confusion, and the escalating tide of danger. It was as if I could feel the foundation of everything around us shaking, as if the house itself breathed deeply, reaching out toward the truth that lay buried beneath its walls, and then it happened. A loud crash erupted from behind us, and several people turned, startled. The sound came from the direction of the entrance, an uninvited force splintering through the door. "Get down!" the newcomer shouted, the urgency in their voice shattering the tentative calm. As I crouched, I realized the tumult wasn't just a physical manifestation of chaos, it was a metaphor for our lives, interwoven with dangers neither of us could foresee. The looming threat threatened to crack everything open, revealing a world of dangerous secrets just beneath the surface. Ethan grasped my arm, his grip fierce and protective, silencing both our fears and awakening our fight. But as I turned to look back at him, I saw a new emotion swimming in his dark eyes, a hint of something deeper, a revelation waiting to surge, igniting amidst the fear that now threatened to engulf us all. Time hung like an unlit lantern as I waited for the next moment to unfold, the promise of love and truth tantalizingly close, but grounded in the reality that every choice, every relationship was about to change forever. The sudden crash reverberated across the room, pulling us from the brink of our own emotional abyss and plunging us into a new realm of chaos. Shadows danced on the walls as people screamed, some ducking behind furniture while others instinctively surged toward the entrance. My heart raced, not just in response to the impending danger, but from the way Ethan's presence steadied me amidst the turmoil. "Stay close," he muttered, urgency threading through his voice as he pulled me beside him. We edged back toward the wall, eyes darting toward the source of the commotion. The figure at the entrance was obscured, but the palpable fear radiating from the crowd made it clear that it wasn't just an ordinary intruder. A flicker of recognition sparked within me as I caught a glimpse of broad shoulders and a familiar stance. "No," I breathed, the realization colliding with dread. It was Matt, the estranged brother I hadn't seen in years. Our last encounter had been filled with bitterness and accusations, the remnants of a fractured family grappling with secrets. Why now? I thought desperately as I pulled away from Ethan, suddenly caught between my loyalty to him and the chaotic resurgence of my past. Matt stepped further into the room, breathless, a sheen of sweat coating his brow. "They're coming!" he shouted, his voice breaking with urgency, and as it carried, the air thinned with fear and confusion. "We need to get out of here." Now, panic erupted anew as Matt's words settled into the minds of the crowd, understanding dawning and fear amplifying. Faces turned to Ethan, pleading for answers, and for a moment, the weight of the room shifted back onto him. Ethan's jaw clenched, and seeing the turmoil flicker across his face filled me with a sense of impending doom. "What do you mean, they are coming?" he shot back at Matt, the tremor in his voice betraying the strength he struggled to project. "You have to make sense," but the fire in Matt's eyes was more than just fear, it was desperate determination, a glimmer of hope beneath the surface. "The family, the deal, it's gone south. They know about him, about you, and they're coming for what they think is theirs." A wave of murmurs cascaded through the crowd. My heart sank as those two words echoed in my mind, "Coming for you." It was the very threat that had turned my brother's existence into a carefully orchestrated Leah web of betrayal, greed, and loss. I felt as though I stood at the center of two worlds, one that promised love and connection through Ethan and the other that crumbled beneath my feet, rooted in the remnants of familial ties. Everyone was watching Ethan, their faces a mix of fear and expectation, waiting for him to rise above the chaos, to spearhead our escape. But how could he lead while grappling with a truth that could devastate the very relationships we were fighting to protect? "Together, then," I murmured, wrapping my fingers around his wrist. Holding on, I sent a silent plea, had to harness the strength he had only just begun to recognize within himself. "You have to trust that this love can protect you." "I've got your back," Clara whispered, stepping forward, her gaze locked onto Ethan now, sharing a bond that seemed to echo the unspoken vow we all felt in that moment. "Beaut, if we stay here and wait, we won't find out how far the ties of truth can really extend." Just then, the doorframe splintered as two more figures burst through, and gasps mixed with heartbeats erupted. As they emerged from the shadows, clarity fell into sharp focus. It was our father, a man whose name could invoke terror equal to Tim Sand. Beside him stood a woman draped in expensive fabric, her eyes icy yet sharp with purpose. "Ethan," the woman proclaimed with the authority of a matriarch, her voice laden with years of experience in corporate warfare and personal betrayal. "You've put yourself at risk parading with inferior company, and now you've brought my son into this mess." Ethan recoiled, as if physically struck, the words slicing through the room like a knife. "Your son?" he spat, taking a step back yet unable to suppress the raw emotion bubbling to the surface. "You don't get to claim that now." "Yes, because you've always been the good son, haven't you?" she hissed, venom curling with every carefully selected syllable, and I could see the past feed into the present, igniting fresh wounds. "But let me assure you, love alone will not save you from the truth of our heritage. An electric tension filled the air, marking the division between loyalty and treachery, love and betrayal, as Ethan stood between two worlds, grappling with who he truly was. I felt the weight of that division strangling my breath, threatening to drown us all in a flood of doubt. Get back! Ethan shouted, his voice rising above the din, rage melding with a depth of emotion that seemed nearly tangible. This isn't over. Not yet. But as the air drew tight around us, a chill ran through my skin. I realized that echoing beneath the surface of everything, buried beneath layers of anguish, lay another truth waiting to be revealed. Matt's eyes turned toward me, sharp with uncertainty, and the moment stretched, darkening the edge of hope where love was meant to reign. In that silence, a single thought threaded its way through my chest, a chilling premonition that the battle for Ethan's identity and our future was only just beginning, and the stakes had never been higher. What if the very thing we fought to protect was about to become our greatest betrayal? The tension hung thick like a heavy fog, obscuring any hope of clarity as we stood against the encroaching storm. My mind raced, a whirlwind of fear and determination swirling around the chaos that had taken hold of our lives. Ethan was at the center, a tempest of emotion, grappling with every hidden truth and unsaid word spiraling toward him. I could see the fractures in his facade laid bare, the weight of legacy balanced precariously on his shoulders. Just breathe, I whispered, struggling to quell my own panic as shards of uncertainty threatened to slice through our fragile connection. But with each breath, the chaos outside intensified, an insistent reminder that we were running out of time. Your ignorance will be your downfall, the woman, his mother, remarked sharply, her voice insidious like a whisper in the dark. You thought you could play house with a poor excuse for a family? You will see soon enough what you truly are, a pawn in a game you don't even understand. Ethan's jaw tightened, and I felt the tremors of his internal battle. I stepped closer, grounding myself in resolve. None of that matters right now. What matters is navigating this storm together, love or no love. Love? This? Tim bellowed, cutting as deeply as a knife. What has love ever done for you? It is nothing but a fallacy, and when faced with harsh reality, it will leave you naked and shivering. Ethan's eyes fell to the floor for a moment, but then something sparked within him. The raw power of his truth began to resurface, igniting the fire that had always burned inside him, albeit suppressed by fear and expectation. You don't know what you're talking about, he said slowly, his voice a low and fierce rumble. Love is not weakness. It's everything. It built this company and it brought this group here today. In that crucial moment, a flicker of hope ignited among the throng of investors, a small yet growing nodding of heads that signaled a resonance with his words. I clung tightly to Ethan's arm, feeling the currents of determination and fear merge. Was it enough for us to stand against what threatened to consume us? Ethan, I urged, finding the strength to keep him on track, you can do this. You must let everyone see the truth of who you are, not just as a leader, but as a brother, son, and ally. This is your moment to shine beyond the lies, regardless of their accusations. Tim scoffed, his sneer darkening the air around us. Your little group of misfits can act as brave as they want, but I assure you, none of this will save you. The vultures in this room would eat your very heart given the chance. But even as he spoke, I could feel a shift. Ethan took a deep breath, and with it, certainty fell over his features. He lifted his chin, staring directly at Tim. You think you can tear this family apart, but love has an uncanny strength one you clearly underestimated. You taught me well, Dad, about ambition and power. But you never taught me how to betray my own blood or my own beliefs. The collective gasps from the crowd hummed like electricity in the air, the tension suddenly shifting from despair to something undefinable. Might it be the dawn of a battle? Just as the resolve began to coalesce, another voice broke through. It's time to put all your cards on the table, the elder man from earlier interjected, glancing around the room, each gaze searching for solidarity. We need the truth, no matter how painful. We can only fight together if we know exactly what we're fighting against. His words were infused with that kind of wisdom born of a life lived through darkness and light alike. Fine, Ethan replied, his voice simmering with resolve. Let's lay it all out. Tim, you've dictated everything in our lives, played your games of control, but I refuse to be your pawn any longer. If we are to survive, we must expose the truth. Every eye was on us now, the fervor mounting, driven by Ethan's unwavering resolve. I felt a shift within myself, a burgeoning tide of belief that love could overcome the murkiest of shadows, and so, Ethan began to speak. Layer by layer, he peeled back the fragile veneer of illusion hiding our family's truths. With each word, the air shifted, dark secrets spilling into the light, revealing the web of lies that had tethered him, suffocating the brilliant light within. Each revelation sparked a ripple of reaction, a solidarity brewing beneath the layers of fear. Years ago, my father made choices that have haunted our family, Ethan began, his voice steady as he filled the room with a light born from honesty. He aligned with shady deals that promised success at any cost. But I refuse to inherit a narrative born from betrayal which seeks to claim lives and destroy future generations for greed. That's a sick narrative, Tim snapped, but his words fumbled, tumbling weakly against the strengthened resolve in the room. This isn't just about me. It's about truth. It's about all of us seeking something greater in a tangled web of morality and risk. We can only break free through love, trust, and unity. That's the legacy my mother wanted for me. And if anyone has forgotten, let this be your wake-up call. He paused to glance at me, and in that moment, I saw him the raw vulnerability alongside steadfast resolve. The waves of determination radiated around him, gathering strength, binding us all in a silent pact. I could sense Sarah's eyes behind me, and the warmth of Jamie's presence, Clara's quiet strength, each a reminder that love weaved through our fractures, conspiring to create something profound in the ashes of despair. But just as we clung to hope, the room reverberated with a loud crash that echoed through the entrance, and my heart stuttered in horror. Someone was entering, but not just an entourage of figures dressed in tailored suits, faces stern and weaponized with ambition. My chest tightened. Enough of this charade. Another voice called, a woman stepping forward, her presence radiating undeniable intensity. We control the narrative, and it is time to remind you all of what happens when you stray from established hierarchies. Everything in me screamed, time suspended as we stood on the brink of an abyss. Love flickered between us, intertwined with fragile truths that could either free us or bind us indefinitely. What would we do now against this tide of destruction? And just then, in the suffocating silence that followed her declaration, Ethan took a decisive step forward. Then let us expose the real threat. No. The woman's voice rang sharp and dangerous. You will regret your words, Ethan. You can't take that path. There are forces far greater than you realize. She warned, her eyes murky with shadows we had yet to illuminate. I'd rather take that path than pretend we're living in a lie, Ethan argued, his voice solid. Whatever the cost, I'd choose truth over your deceit any day. It's time you realize that. The collective intake of breath ignited the air as the tension surged between us. I felt the walls tremble with possibility. If one thing was certain now, it was that love and truth had the power to transform not just fate but destinies. This was no longer just about our families, it was about unifying against a tide that sought to tear us apart. And as the confrontation loomed and the ultimate showdown beckoned, I understood something powerful echoed in the heart of us all. Perhaps in these fractured moments, amidst chaotic storms of betrayal and lies, the truth had woven itself into our very existence, indomitable, resilient, and worth fighting for. Whatever you think you've won can only lead you to loss, I declared, rising beside Ethan. For we forge ahead rooted in the very family timbers you sought to tear down. Packaged nicely in love and honesty, and with that, a hush fell over the room, thick and suffocating, as the revelation of our resilience battled against the headwinds of conflict, ready to etch itself into the annals of what we could become. The past lingered, yes, like shadows awaiting the dawn, but at this point of reckoning a new light was beginning to awaken, and with every heartbeat, I clung to hope that perhaps we could grow anew. The greatest storms often birthed the deepest blooms. Families united in love once torn asunder would rise again, finally gathered at the sacred hearth of forgiveness, rebirth, and strength. In that moment, something indescribable shifted, a transformation leading to paths yet unexplored, honest bonds weaving their way through uncertainty. In the face of that truth, we stood tall, ready for whatever came next. And so I whispered the words, the final catalyst igniting our shared resolve: together, we change everything.